Hello and a very warm welcome to a new video here on my channel here at commaik. A robotic mower with RTK functionality can mow with centimeter precision, provided there's a decent satellite signal. But what if, like me, you have lots of trees or a large house and the satellite signal doesn't reach the RTK antenna clearly or the mower itself? Well, that's exactly where the Anthbot M9 RTK comes in. Because besides standard RTK, this mower also supports Dual-RTK, meaning you can connect multiple RTK antennas and 4G positioning. Whether all of this actually works and can solve those common problems in your garden is what I want to explore in this video. Stay tuned, we're about to start. Anthbot has provided me with another robotic mower this year, specifically the M9. I'll be putting it through its paces here on my lawn, and specifically I'll see what happens under the trees near the house. Does it stay accurate, or does it occasionally lose its track? But before I get into the details and show you how I set it up in the app, mapped the property and what pros and cons I found, let's start with the unboxing. I'll show you what accessories are included. Let's get to the unboxing. What's in the box? What do you need for installation? First of all, of course, the quick start guide on a large sheet. You have a brief explanation in German and English for setup, installation and commissioning. I think it's very nice, it's very clearly laid out. Once you've done it once, you'll get the hang of it in no time. Naturally, the robot itself is included in the package. The M9 weighs in at 10.1 kilograms. That's right in the range for robots that can mow areas up to 1,000 square meters. This isn't a robot for a huge field, nor for a tiny garden. This mower was designed for small to medium-sized gardens. On the underside, you can see clearly that we have a cutting disc with a total of 5 blades that spin and rotate. The side clearance is a few centimeters, but it can drive over the edges. At least I'm going to test that. What else do you get? Of course, the charging station where the robot gets charged. The charging station doesn't have to be right on the lawn. It can be slightly off to the side, as long as the access path is clear. You get a mount for the RTK antenna and a ground spike included. You can also mount the antenna on the wall, of course, with a suitable bracket. However, that's not included. And the RTK antenna itself goes right on top of the mount. It's simply screwed on and then connected with the cable. And I think that's very, very nice, because last year there were often questions about why the cable from the RTK antenna to the station was so short. With the old model, you could only set up the RTK antenna right next to the charging station. This time, an extension cable is included. That should easily be 3 to 4 meters, I haven't measured it yet, but it lets you position the RTK antenna much more flexibly. A big plus there. I'm glad Anthbot listened and made those improvements. You get a charger with it. Obviously the thing needs power. It's IP6 rated, so the charging station can be installed in damp outdoor areas. And there's also a 5-meter power supply cable included as an extension. Then you have some tools. A screwdriver and an Allen key to screw in the ground pegs and securely anchor the charging station. And then there's also a cable holder to secure the cables to the ground. Finally, a printed instruction manual. Once you've installed the app, you'll find a manual there as well, of course. That's really all there is, and that's all it needs. The thing basically runs by itself. And exactly how it works and how it's installed, I'll show you now. I've installed the charging station back here on the walkway because I want to test many more robot mowers throughout the year, setting them up side by side to give you a better idea of which robot mower is the best fit for your garden. The charging station is incredibly simple to set up. It's just placed on flat ground and screwed down. Importantly, you don't have to set up the charging station on the lawn. It can be placed slightly off the grass as long as the robot has clear access to its station. That's no problem at all. I've screwed the connections on the back to be watertight. The power supply and the RTK antenna are simply plugged in. They're color-coded, so you can't mix them up. The Anthbot M9 works with its RTK antenna in the full-band RTK range. This means it uses multiple frequencies to determine the robot mower's exact position via satellites, accurate to the centimeter. I haven't anchored the RTK antenna that comes with the robot using the ground stake, but rather up there on my wood rack with this bracket. There, the device has a clear view of the sky and can receive satellite signals very well. This bracket is part of an extension that's also available from Anthbot. If you want to know more details, check the description below the video. The magic word is Dual-RTK. Dual-RTK means that this robot can work with multiple RTK antennas. For example, if you have a divided property where RTK signals to the robot are blocked, say by a house with a front and back garden, then you can install one RTK antenna in the front garden, a second one in the back, and pair both with the robot. The device then positions itself precisely using both antennas. By the way, the Anthbot also supports NetRTK. This means it uses signals from nearby cell towers to determine its position exactly. RTK, 4G, all in one. And that's actually going to be important in my case, because besides the property you see here, there's a second lawn area behind the blue house that has no direct line of sight to the RTK antenna. I'm curious to see if it handles that just as well and mows just as precisely over there. So that it can mow there, I'll first set up the device in the app, of course, and then map out this property. To set up the Anthbot robotic mower, map your property, or even install the regular updates, you'll need the Anthbot app, and the charging station requires a good Wi-Fi signal. By the way, the robot itself doesn't need Wi-Fi reception while it's out moving. The charging station should definitely have a good signal reception. I've already downloaded the Anthbot app, created an account, and logged in. Right on the home screen, I can now add a new device. Using the Bluetooth signal, my smartphone is now searching for the Anthbot and finds it right away. I'll select the device, and I could assign a name right here. The robot supports both 2.4 and 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks. I'll select my Wi-Fi, enter the corresponding Wi-Fi password, and connect. After just a short time, the robot is set up, and I can map the property. Shortly after, the robot pulls out of the charging station, and I can use the cursor to steer it to the next property boundary where it begins automatic mapping. By the way, you can easily expand the map, create new zones, and even cross over sidewalks. To do this, simply go into the existing map, click on the map icon to edit, click on Modify, and then on Expand Map. Keep in mind that the path you steer to the new zone will also be the path the robot takes in the future. Once in the new zone, I just click on automatic mapping again, and the robot continues its task. Now let's take a look at the most important functions in the app. On the home screen, I have my 3 zones shown on the overall map and can edit them again using the map icon. Among other things, I can also define the edge processing here. This allows me to individually set the cutting height and edge overlap for each zone or all zones at once. The gear icon takes me to the mowing settings. Here I can specify whether the robot should mow once or twice per pass, and also set the cutting height between 30 and 70 millimeters. I can also activate the edge cutting. I can also set the mowing direction. The mowing direction should be selected perpendicular to the property boundaries so that the robot can mow the edges cleanly. In the settings, you have many more options for the robot. One of the most important settings is, of course, the schedule. Here you can individually determine exactly when the robot should run and when it should not run. You can also individually determine the mowing sequence of the individual zones here. If you have to place your charging station directly on the lawn, the dock area mowing mode is an interesting option. Because here you can set the robot to specifically mow around the charging station again after successfully mowing the entire area. It is important that you secure the cables particularly well in this case. The other functions are, in my opinion, self-explanatory. I have already described them in another video, which I will link for you below this video. The Anthbot M9 RTK has been driving around here on my property's 3 zones for a good week now. The setup was very simple, and I have now set the schedule to twice a week. It doesn't need those 7 hours that I had entered. In principle, it's finished with this area after almost 3 hours with 1 charge in between. It does that confidently. The paths it takes are nicely U-shaped with a 50% overlap. That also works wonderfully. In my opinion, it doesn't do the edges quite perfectly yet. It left me a little bit of space there. I just readjusted it. In the app, you can set an overlap of up to 20 centimeters, or you can simply remap the boundary limits manually and force the robot to drive on the stones. It works well for me because I have accessible walkways. And if you don't have accessible walkways, it's obviously not quite as simple. What I don't like quite as much yet is how it handles the corners. You can see that here, for example. The robot drives around the edge here, and this area back here, of course, doesn't get mowed. It doesn't make a 90-degree turn there. I've managed by simply letting the robot drive a little bit further beyond it. I have walkways here so it can drive over them without any problems and cut the edges. But I've already asked Anthbot about it and hope to be able to provide you with a solution soon. But what about the stability of the signal? Can the robot actually drive where it has no line of sight to the RTK antenna? It can. And you can see that here on this third section of my lawn. Back here, it has no way of making contact with the RTK antenna. The walls are much too thick. The only possibility is through this very narrow gap back to the wood shelf where the RTK antenna is hanging. And yet, every time it finds its way here onto the property and back to its charging station, without any problems. It even mows the area located behind the garden shed. So I have to say that definitely works, even though I use neither Dual-RTK nor NetRTK. Because you need to know, with Dual-RTK, you absolutely need a second RTK antenna. I could set that up in this area, pair it with the robot, and then have even greater stability. And the NetRTK, that is navigation via the 4G radio masts that your mobile phone also uses. This function is only activated when the robot no longer has a signal, when the signal is too weak. Only at that moment does this function become active in the app. Then you can book it and there's a subscription for it. The first 3 months are usually free of charge. You don't need a SIM card. There's an eSIM built in under the touchpad. The subscription currently costs nearly €40 a year. This option is worthwhile for all those who cannot or do not want to set up an RTK antenna, who have no space, or who simply do not want to see the thing in the garden. By the way, the robot uses its 2 cameras not only for navigation, but also for active obstacle avoidance. I don't have a hedgehog at hand, but it reliably avoided the hamster in several tests. The Anthbot M9 reliably performs its work here on the property. It mows the lawn reliably and precisely with a 50% overlap. First the middle and then once more around the outside edge, so that really nothing can be forgotten. That convinced me. The cutting pattern looks very good. What is also very simple is the setup. Maybe 15 minutes invested and then a lot of time saved. Because set up the charging station, link the robot with the app, let the automatic mapping run, that's all there is to it. The robot simply does its job, but you might have to readjust at the edges. They weren't perfectly successful right away. The robot does drive a bit far into the lawn and doesn't always cut the edges cleanly and precisely. But there is the readjustment function. That means you can simply readjust the edges in the app without deleting the entire map. You can simply refine the existing map again. That is definitely a further development that convinced me. That saves an incredible amount of work. This way I can keep readjusting a bit during the season. Even my gravel stones at the edges were mastered with flying colors. Only once did it get stuck, but it was able to free itself independently. That was an interesting procedure, forward, backward, sideways, so the programmer also put some thought into it. So you don't have to worry about the robot getting stuck anywhere. What in my opinion definitely still needs to be improved are the corners and edges. It doesn't mow 90-degree curves there, but drives in semicircles. Consequently, it leaves about 10 centimeters standing there. The programmers need to improve on that. But thanks to OTA, the device can be supplied with new software remotely, so it can be improved. I just hope that Anthbot, as in the last year, continuously delivers updates. What also gave me a headache is the detection of my ground tanks. You know, I've installed a lawn irrigation system here and have the valve boxes in the ground. The robot recognizes the green and black lids and perceives them as obstacles. It drives around them. The previous model just drove over them, which is what I wanted. This model recognizes a danger here, an obstacle, and avoids it. I'm still checking with Anthbot on how to correct that. I'm also hoping to get a solution through the software. If this affects you, then let's exchange ideas. Write a comment under the video. How do you deal with it? What could I maybe do, or what ideas do you have to get a handle on this problem? I'm going to let this robot run for quite a while longer, and I'll be comparing it with other robots. A video will follow on a sister model of the M9 RTK. Besides the M8, I'm testing the M5 LiDAR for you. This robot no longer has an RTK satellite connection. It uses a laser-based imaging system to memorize its surroundings, to remember them, and to navigate independently based on the environment. That means you don't need satellites anymore if it actually works that easily. I'm looking forward to your feedback, to your opinion. Write it for me under the video in the comments section. Give me a thumbs up for this video. If you want to know more about the M9, feel free to look under the video in the description. There you'll find more information and the links to the technical specifications. Check out what accessories are available. Above all, you can see how much a part like that costs at the moment. Maybe there's a discount code again that I can give you. I hope that I can get that for you. Give me a thumbs up, I'm really happy about that. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any new videos. I'll say thank you and watch my M9 at work for a bit longer.